Okay, yep, we're live.
Aloha and Wahine. We're so hau'oli this evening to be here in this space with all of you. Welcome, welcome. We hope all of you are well across our pai aina and other aina across the oceans in Mauli o Kako. Belina mai to our ʻAha Wahine Kūhinapapa webinar series. Tonight we present to you an ʻOhana Legacy of Hula with our very special guests. We'll introduce them in a little bit. Please let us know via the chat where you're from. Say aloha, hi, as you join us. We'd appreciate that. Still amazed at how small our world is getting through technology, that we can do things like this despite what's happening. So I got some really good news right now, real fast before we get into this. We're gonna play a contest. So for those of you that joined us a couple weeks ago, we kind of reviewed our history, mo'oku auhau of ʻAha Wahine. And for tonight, our contest, we have a question. And the rule is real simple, just to put the answer in the chat. And so the first 3 people that answer, 3 different answers, will win. And at the end of the hour, we'll announce the winners. And what you get to win is this. There you can see Seeds of Change. And I chose that because when we first started to sell it, Auntie Hoku, one of our special guests, she was like the VIP customer of the month. So this is super ono, goes for a good cause, but we just want to makana this to some of you out there, some of you wahine. So the question is, provide the title and presenter of a presentation from one of the last ʻAha Wahine conferences. Okay, so provide the title and the name of the presenter of a presentation from one of the last ʻAha Wahine conferences. And I haven't done so yet, but aloha, my name is Jamie Miller, and super happy to be amongst all of you and be one of your hosts this evening, moderators. I'm co-hosting tonight with Judy Oliveira, who will take it from here.
Aloha no, as we celebrate all that we are as women, as wahine, as mana wahine, what a better way for us to start our evening and to spend our time with 2 of the most inspirational wahine that many of us have come to know and have just been so appreciate them and all that they've given to our lahui. So tonight we start off with Dr. Holt Padilla, who is the director of the Kahikina o Kala program at the UH Maui College, and her tita, Ulalia Woodside, the director of the Nature Conservancy. Again, we're so happy to have both of you and to be with you. And we know that we have so much to talk about tonight. So we're going to just open the space and we're going to begin. And the first question that I get to ask you is, what things, experiences, traditions, people were important to shaping who you are as wahine today? And we're going to have Auntie Hoku speak first.
Aloha mai kako. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you, and I'm excited to share whatever we might be talking about. A little nervous as well, but I am so happy to be here. I think among the people and things that inspired me, or tradition experiences that were important, I'd like to start with the whole idea of aina. The whole idea that it is the aina that I was raised in that helped to shape me as much as the people that I was raised with that helped to shape me. I was fortunate to be raised in a Hawaiian household. My baby years, as well as all summers and school vacations, were spent here on Maui with my tutus, with my grandparents, And that upbringing taught me many, many things. It taught me about ʻOhana, values and behaviors. It also taught me independence. You know, there is something to country living that also teaches you a little bit about independence. We could go down to the beach and not have to worry about an adult needing to sit on the beach and watch us. There was some level of independence that was also a part of growing up. Definitely, some of the things that needed to happen were known as kuleana today. You know, of course, when we were living it, it wasn't like, oh, Hoku, today this is your kuleana. Oh, no. Today you go outside, you feed the animals, and you make sure your cousins are not jumping off the tree and going to break their leg, or any of those things that become kuleana. You trust your instincts. That kind of upbringing also helps you to do that. So the good country living helped to develop, I believe, through experience, the independence, and while at the same token, the reestablishment or establishment of the importance of ʻOhana. That was my small time growing up. When I returned to Honolulu to live with my mother and to go to school, Honolulu, living with my mother on top of the rest of that, was also about education. My mother believed in learning. She believed in appreciating diverse music and art and food. So to appreciate learning. She also was very community minded, which meant that she was part of the Waimanalo Hawaiian Civic Club when I was in my teens. And, you know, we did all of that, go to Civic Club, and she participated fully in the Civic Club. But again, one of the most important things was ʻOhana always. Always ʻOhana. There was always room in your home for ʻOhana. There was always an opportunity to be with ʻOhana. It was always important for her to visit with her sisters and with her brothers and to maintain those relationships. And then when I returned to Maui, I had the great fortune of living again with my grandparents, and their house was the cog in the wheel. So all my cousins would circle in to the house in Wai'ehu. Yeah, so every 2 weeks we'd have another batch of cousins come in to spend time. And so it was always ʻOhana. So those experiences help to make sure that who I am today is based upon the upbringing that I had in good country living, and Waimanalo is good country living as well as ʻOhana. It was the basis of everything that occurred around me. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Auntie. So Ulalia, again, Auntie has touched upon and over reminded us about the importance of ʻOhana and how wonderful. I think when you were coming down from heaven and you said, "Oh, I'm going to pick Auntie Hoku to be my sister," like I'm wondering if maybe you knew that you were going to be in this space with ʻOhana and what those experiences were like for you, because it just sounded amazing for Auntie, and I think she continues to do that today. So tell us about your experiences in your ʻOhana.
Mahalo, Judy. Aloha mai kākou. You know, I'm going to share what is, you know, right in front of my face right now as I listen to the conversation, the question that you asked, and what I'm working through right now. And so much resonates with what Tita Hōkūlani just shared. Important things that shaped who I am as a wahine today were absolutely my kupuna, the one that I met and those I never met. my makua, who brought the dreams and aspirations of my kupuna to life and hopefully to fruition in me. We try. My ʻOhana, my kuaʻana, huahānau, makua, keiki, and certainly kumu that have come along the way and who have felt that there's something here in which they'd like to invest. And speaking of ʻOhana, I have to talk about hula. And in thinking about, you know, what's something that's important in shaping me, and also shaping me for right now, right? And what comes to mind for me is the uniki process, and my uniki process that my ʻOhana, my tita, Hōkūlani, helped work me through. My nephews were a part of this. My cousin was there, my mother and aunts and, you know, family helped through this. But in that process, you know, really coming to this full understanding of an idea of the collective, which is the halau, and the collective guild, that sort of understanding of the collective, of what it means as a kumu hula, what it means in halau, and what it means as the collective of the guild of hula, was really transformative for my leadership. Maybe positive, maybe not so positive at times. But really with that collective, right, is this idea of people like to use the word team. And we use the word team a lot. We get lots of leadership teams at work. We get team this, team that. But truly in that collective and in that word team is this sense of being interdependent on each other for our success, right? And so, you know, here is where my upbringing and my hula expectations don't always have a place, or maybe they actually have the exact place that we need in other worldviews and world norms. And so for me, I was, you know, very familiar with leadership teams from a very young age, as you can hear from Tita Hōkūlani stories, right? You know, even being outside with all of your cousins, without your kupuna there, without your tutu there was some type of team, there was some type of leadership, there was some type of kuleana. Even though you were free, there were still all of these things, right? And in halau, tons of that, you know, and as you grew in halau, your responsibility and expectations also grew in some forms of leadership. Even the basic stuff, right? If you were on the right end of the front line, right? You were responsible for basically ensuring the whole entire group would be in the right spot where they needed to be the whole entire performance, right? If you had the responsibility to lead the oli when you started, the pitch you started on, hello, Mary didn't always do that part very well, the pace at which you set it all up, the whole thing could rise and fall on you, right? And so this leadership, we're familiar with it, this concept of team or collective and being reliant and responsible to each other and interdependent upon each other for success, just really shaped who I am today. And that comes from my family, comes from my sister, it comes from my ʻOhana, and it comes from hula. And it doesn't mean that there wasn't a place for your ideas or for you to sort of share what you might be thinking, even as you moved into the place of, you know, being on the alaka'i team or, you know, whatever it is. There were these times and places for it. And I really came to especially this understanding as I worked through the uniki process. Right. And as you're in this process with all of this responsibility, there's a sense of what you have to kind of pull off by yourself. Right. And in that process, recognizing that the dancer is reliant on the kumu for the vision and the ability to communicate that vision and get everybody to bring it forth. The kumu is just incredibly reliant on the dancers to pull it off, to understand it, get it, and pull it off, right? There's any number of kokua along the way, from costume to lei to the kuahu to the ceremony of foods, the ceremony of ʻAha. You know, there's just no shortage of all of those foods. And what I realized in that process was this sort of fear about asking for help, because for a brief moment, right, you think it's help for you. But what you come to realize is you're not really asking for help. You're clarifying and asking and helping us all recognize what we're all going to do together in order to pull it off. And everybody wants to do their part really, really well, because they know that there's high kuleana to this thing. And when done well and done together, it sort of transcends everything, right? And I think that's something that in my ʻOhana and in that practice and that tradition has come to just really, I never really realized how much it shaped me, and how much we as Wahine sometimes in these things, and then in our community, that might not also be what everybody else sees and shares. And so I know my history and my experience isn't something that everybody else has shared and experienced. And so those are other things we have to learn how to work through.
I wanted to talk a little bit, to take off from Ulalia's conversation about hula and tradition. Yeah, because that's why we're partially here. We come, for those who may not know the two of our history, we come from a line of Kumu hula. My grandmother, our grandmother, was a Kumu hula. Three of her daughters became Kumu hula. Two of her granddaughters, the two you see here, became Kumu hula, and two of her great grandchildren also became Kumu hula. So hula tradition is what permeates how we look at the world. And if you think about hula and maybe how that has, like Ulalia said, shaped who we are, all of the things you learn in hula, we do, and we have absorbed it, incorporated it into how we look at our world. Things such as discipline. You know, we are in a time, or I don't know whether it's a time or whatever, but you know, sometimes discipline seems like a bad word to people. But hula teaches you discipline, and it teaches you how to stick to something, how to be persistent. You know, that's an educational word, yeah, persistence. Everybody should go halau and do hula. That teaches you how to be persistent. Attention to detail. Our mother was aces at attention to detail. Every little itty bitty thing. Hula provides that ability to do that. Attention to detail. Practice to make perfect. You know, I always tell my students, you cannot expect to walk out of this halau and not do one lick of hula and walk back in next week and know how to dance. That ain't gonna happen. Yeah, you have to persist at practicing in order to perfect. That is a part of what we grew up with in our hula upbringing as well. And in our personal as well as in the mele that we learn, we have learned to love Hawaii. To love Hawaii like no other, like a person, like way deep. Yeah? Hula helps to reinforce and teach us that, as well as our upbringing, which fostered that love for Hawaii. Hula also teaches you that your kumu and your teachers gave you this because they want you to have it. Yeah? When you come to hula, and hula is one thing that everybody can come, any age, any place from the world you can come, but it is hula that has given you that opportunity to know Hawaii. So it is also important thing to make hula look easy, yeah, effortless. You work really hard. So that work ethic of working really hard to make things look effortless, yeah, no matter what you do, and that you take into your everyday life. You work hard. And then when people come and say, oh, that's you ran that meeting so well, and that's such a lovely thing. It looks so easy when you do it. And you go, ugh, if you only knew. Hula also teaches you to be grateful. We are always grateful for each and everything we learn, each of everything. What Ulalia said, you learn to be appreciative of the people who have helped you, of the people who have taken their time with you, um, and deep down, you, no matter what ethnicity you are, you really do come to appreciate your own kupuna. I have students. I have a student that is, or two students that are pure Japanese, that have been in hula for really, really long. They live here in Hawaii. She sent her daughter to Hawaiian language immersion school. She sent her daughter to Kayapuni her whole life, pure Japanese. So her daughter knows Japanese, Hawaiian, and English. And I asked her, why did you do that? And she said, I find that when she knows and when I know a culture not mine, I come to appreciate my own culture even more. I see my own teachings even more. So hula brings to people and brings to us, and then we hope we bring to others, that appreciation of self, but also appreciation of outside of self. The other thing hula can always do for you is help you trust your na'au. Trust your na'au that you're doing the right thing the right time, because if you're not, the kumu is going to course correct. The kumu will course correct. But these are hula things that for us was what we were raised with, and what we appreciate in how we interact with people, and how we interact with students, and how we interact with the world as a whole. I think hula for us, well, I'm thinking us, but I know for me, hula is what has opened many doors for my life. Yeah. But it also teaches you about life.
Mhm. Thank you, Auntie. And now I'm going to turn it over to my co-host. There's so many things for us to sit and so many wonderful lessons that, again, you have learned. Both of you have been raised with hula, and yet for many of us who are not as active in hula, just watching both of you and how you interact with us, with other wahine, with just the world around us, we take all that you have learned, and now we're also learning in the same way, even if we're not actively dancing with you. So mahalo. And now we get to call in Dr. Jamie Miller, who will take you to the next question.
That was very rich conversation happening. I really love, Auntie Hoku, what you shared about love the good country living. During this time right now, that's what everybody is aspiring for, like those safe environments for all of our ʻOhana, for our children, for our kupuna. Like, where is the good country living? So thank you for taking us back to that and reimagining, how it could be nowadays. And for Ulalia sharing that process of uniki and the collectivity that ʻOhana had in it, and the many different roles, that there's always a place for someone, for anyone. I think that is what I got from what you shared, Ulalia. And then the many different momis about what hula has given you and what you folks give to hula, in return gives to all of us what Judy had shared. And so it brings us really a little bit more in depth to our next question around inheritance and traits, and And we know, you folks, as you shared as Kumu, Judy and I as educators, how very influential our environments are on the lives of our keiki, and as they develop into opio, makua, become kupuna, and you folks provided some of that. But could you share maybe specific traits you have inherited from important wahine in your life, like your mama? And I'm gonna ask Ulalia to share first.
Mahalo, Jamie. You know, you might maybe got a sense of some of the traits inherited from my mama, from my previous answer, and certainly Tita Hoku just shared some things in her answer there. Some of what I feel I have inherited from important wahine in my life, and especially from my mama, might actually be a little annoying to those that are around me at times. And you know, one of those that I know both Tita Hōkūlani and I have in a way picked up from our mother is, I've been thinking. Right? So like you'll be driving along, you'll be somewhere, and all of a sudden it'll be like, well, I've been thinking. And I've been thinking means there's like a big thing coming up. It's probably going to be a big show, or like a whole new program is going to come to life, or like a kind of like a new way of doing something, a whole new campaign at work, because there's all these sparks and synapses that are coming together. And we've been thinking. So that's one of them, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. But you know, I want to start at perhaps the very beginning. And as Tita Hōkūlani mentioned, you know, from our mother, we got an extremely deep and abiding aloha and responsibility for Hawaii, and a deep and abiding responsibility and appreciation for the traditions of our family and the legacy of our family and the traditions of our family's hula. And those are certainly, you might not consider them, maybe they're not traits, but they are foundational values and North Stars for both of us. You know, other things that I consider more like traits that I inherited from my mother that kind of might be annoying to other people is, you know, I have an ability to see potential in people, potential in dancers, potential in team members. That can be highly annoying when you don't see that potential in yourself. And, but just this ability to see that somebody's right on the edge of that potential, or what needs to happen in order for them to get into a different headspace and explore their full potential. The ability to see how things, especially with dancers, and then improve. It's kind of annoying to always be able to, it would just be this like, we just did this little bit thing, it would be better. If you just bent your knees just a little bit more on that beat and turned your head this way and leaned your body that way, it would look so much better, right? And that ability to be able to see those details and that refinement that Hōkūlani talked about. With that, I think comes from a similar trait. It's to know that you have an intuition, and to listen to the intuition, and at times rely on that intuition and recognize what you need right now, what right now needs from you, a little bit of what will be, intuition about relationships, you know, and people and interactions between people, and being able to just recognize, you know, those things, you know, that's helpful. And then, you know, when someone asks for help, you help. And it's raised, you know, kind of in our little circle and where we raise, people don't ask for help just sort of frivolously. Like when people ask for help, they usually really mean it. They really kind of want help and need help. And our mother always helped, even if that help meant she needed to do something she'd never done before. But people trusted that they're going to ask her to do it. It's going to be good and it's going to be awesome. And so another, kind of trait, that comes from our mother is creativity, and that ability to recognize, even if you've never done something, okay, I'm not going to go out and try brain surgery anytime soon, so don't worry. But there is an ability to think about your creativity and bring that to life. The last thing I will say that is one of the traits that my mother tried to instill in me and in us is to bring your absolute best all the time, right? And if you can bring whatever is the best, bring it. And she was known for that. Sometimes she got it a little bit wrong. Like sometimes she would cook and she would see something that if they would write the 3/4 cup something a certain way, and she kind of read it as 3 or 4 cups, and 4 is always better. More is always better than 3. So she put like 4 in and it was like not good anyway, but it was always about bringing your best. And I remember a time when Tita and I were working on a production together. Tita had developed a production, Kilohi na Kua Wahine, and about different Hawaiian female deities. And we were putting on this production, and in my section was for Kapo Ula Kina'u, and I needed to make sure that the stage represented Kapo Ula Kina'u, and thinking about her kino lau and those types of things. And so it's just like, oh, I have, the stage was bare. I have hala at home. And we were busy getting this was like the day of the production. We're busy getting ready for this production. And so we send a friend with my truck, go to my parents' house. You tell them Ulalia is doing a production. Kapo Ula Kina'u, she needs hala. So they go to the house thinking they're going to come back with some lau hala, some hala fronds, maybe some leaves of hala. My mother and father come out, and my mother goes, Ulalia needs hala. Papa, cut down the hala tree. And so quite literally, my father climbed up there, cut down 2 branches off the hala tree, and the friends were like, is this really what they meant by hala? We were thinking hala. And loaded the hala branches on the truck, brought them, I think, where was that, Tita? Mamiya or what?
Yeah,
I
which one?
think it might have been at Hawaii. I don't think it was at the Blaisdell. I think it was at Hawaii Theater. Haul this down there. Anyway, always bring your absolute best. If it's needed and somebody asks for help, you cut down the hala tree if they need that.
Yeah, those were some of the things I had on my list. Be willing to share and help others with whatever you know and whatever you have. That was something that was important to her. Believe in you and what you know. So that is what she had. She knew. She don't know why she know, but she knew, and she knew if you do this, it'll be fabulous. I think the two of us have kind of absorbed that trait and try and help others to trust in what you feel you have and you want to use. Another thing that I think a trait that our mother had and I hope to emulate, and that is generosity. Generosity with time and ike. Yes, she was generous if people came to ask. Sometimes we got a little perturbed in the sharing of the ask, but her generosity to and for others that come to her was something we witnessed all the time. Here at when before Ulalia was born, when I was young, we lived in a little house, a duplex, and people probably don't know what a duplex is, but it's like a half a house. You share a wall with your neighbor. Yeah, I don't know what they call it nowadays. Anyway, we lived in a 1-bedroom duplex. We always had family living with us. We had a cousin who was going to school. She came live with us. We always had people staying with us. We lived 1 block from Waikiki. Weekends, our half a house, was full of people who came to go to the beach, to enjoy. My mother loved to entertain. She loved to have people around her all the time, and was generous with that. You know, my children know that we're kind of like this in our little Hawaiian homes when they were growing up. All kinds of people lived with us because they didn't have any place to stay for months or sometimes for years. So my mother's generosity taught me that that's how we have to be. We have to be generous with our ike and our time. She also believed in being bold with the things that she knew was right. And I think between Ulalia and I, that is something we hope to emulate with her, is to be bold when you know it's the right thing. And never mind, and Ulalia and I talked about this earlier, never mind that it's not sexy and the thing to do right now, but you knew it was the right thing to do. You be bold and you go and you do what you feel is important. And the last thing I wanted to say is that our mother always believed in learning new things. Always. You know, and during this time of COVID, when we all have to stay home, I have had to learn how to Zoom, how to Google Classroom, how to teach hula on Zoom, how to conduct my offices on that, how to do PowerPoints with embedded videos. And she would not have hesitated in learning what is needed in order to further what she felt was important. So I think always learning new things is something that both Ulalia and I always look to as something that is not only exciting but fun. Yeah, fun learning new things, fun doing new things. And I would agree. You ask my children especially when I go, I was thinking, this is Lono. Mama, mom, don't think. Don't think. Because that means something big coming down the pike. Yeah. So our mama did instill in us, I believe, those things that we carry forth to in our lives daily, as well as to those that circle within our lives.
Mahalo. I definitely can see the traits of your mama in both of you. And thank you for bringing her into this space and sharing her life and the beautiness of who she is with all of us here. We mahalo you. And that was a wonderful picture that Malia found with you folks and your mama and Kaniel, so 3 generations. So our next question, going to hand it over to Judy.
So, Auntie Edulea, we could stay on here for 3 hours talking stories. So, our next question is really about what do you think is the most important qualities right now that women need right now during this time? Both of you have touched upon, big thoughts here, and Mana'o, about intuition, about doing things you've never done before, about being there for others, about even in times of when we are all in our own spaces struggling, remember the generosity and the gratitude. And I'm sure many of us do have ʻOhanas living right now in our homes. So besides that, what are some other traits or qualities, or just, attributes that people, all Wahine should have right now during this time to get us through these days. So I'm going to start off with Auntie Hoku.
Okay. One of the things that I was thinking about, not only the traits and things, but what are things that are needed during these challenging times. And so I want to, I don't know if Ulalia agree with me on this, but I'm gonna forge ahead. I wanted I wanted to think about that our mother never let us wallow. She never let us wallow in I cannot putting me Cinderella. She don't let us do that. And so during these changing times, okay, I don't mean to sound insensitive, but you know when people moan and groan about being at home, that's beyond my consciousness. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, since March, I basically stay home. You know, I don't go shopping. I yay Instacart, you know, and yay all the rest of the things that come. Kaniel will do the large shopping. I don't go to shopping. I don't go to restaurants. I don't go to any of those places, which to some may seem poor thing me Cinderella, but not for me, because I think one of the things we have learned is always find ways to make things better for yourself, for the place around you, so that you're not putting me Cinderella. She don't believe it putting me Cinderella. Mm-mm. Yeah. So that does that mean coming closer, even though we're far apart, and finding ways to do that? We have family Zoom. For me, that is marvelous because I have one daughter, one granddaughter, and one son-in-law all the way in San Francisco. Ulalia and the boys are in Honolulu. Kaniau and I are here on Maui. Yet, we can come together, laugh, enjoy, even if it's only through Zoom, which is probably more than we would have done because Kaniao is here, but Nuukia is all the way in San Francisco, and Kalani and Ulalia is all the way in Honolulu. Yet we can come and laugh and enjoy and eat and talk more than if we had even face-to-face opportunities. Yeah. So these challenging times can also be seen as opportunities to make it less challenging. Look at, oh yeah, putting us, Hoku hasn't traveled on an airplane since March, which is like big deal. We all know she would be traveling like 2-3 times a month. But yet we still remain close. Yeah, it's not COVID has separated us and we are sad to be away from one another. Not at all. We are happy we can come together, and Zoom is the way that we can. So challenging times, I believe, is what you see and what you make of it. We have been seeing friends from across the Pai'aina over all of these webinars and these panel discussions, and that we never would have seen otherwise. We never would have made these connections with them and go, hi, across this otherwise. I have had the opportunity to bring hula students who have moved away from Hawaii because of family or work back to hula, because we now can Zoom hula. So they have come back to hula with halau because of this. So to me, oh yeah, I haven't had face-to-face hula, months. We don't meet together, but there are positives on this too. Here, my student in Japan, my student in Tahiti, my student that's in the East Coast, My student who is now in Barcelona can come in and enjoy hula. So, we can learn new things, challenges perhaps, but great opportunities to make things new and exciting. Mahalo.
Ulalia,
Yes.
call on you to share your mana'o.
Tita, I actually agree 100% and wonder about my response to this, because there's some similarities with what you shared, and believe it or not, she and I been so busy this week. I don't know if anybody on the call is going to believe this, but she and I have been so busy this week that we actually don't know what each other are going to say. We didn't get to prep or any of that. But so what I want to say is, yeah, absolutely. What is one of our family traditions, or what do Wahine need right now? And I want to preface this with, I know everybody is we're in bad places. It's tough for all of us. And in every single place, there are budget cuts. We are homeschooling. We gotta work. We got family in all sorts of situations. And so I don't want this to sound insensitive at all. So o ka mea mai ka'i malama, o ka mea mai ka'i ole ka pai, right? So if what I'm saying is nonsense, and mai ka'i ole, just ka pai it, right? But yes, there was no wallowing with Leane Karozelani o Maui, because if you was going to wallow, she would give you something to wallow about. If you thought what you had was good enough to wallow about, trust me, she could make it worse. She could really give you something to wallow about. But persistence and perseverance through whatever it was absolutely something that we watched her our whole lives stay up just night after night, researching, writing, sewing costumes, dyeing costumes, ohekapala costumes, just days on end, right? Hair all like this. We got those pictures too. I don't put too many of those on Facebook, but her hair like this, her glasses like this, and all of those types of things, because she was generous with her time and her ike, right? And she wanted it to be excellent. But something I've been pondering lately about this time right now and my mother is I've been trying to ponder, what was her self-care? We hear about that right now. Self-care. Trust me, I'm the queen of self-care. I wake up, I do my stretches, I put my meditation music on. I got my meditation music on, and I got my diffuser with the lavender scent, and I got the mindfulness apps, Headspace, and Deepak Chopra and his meditation is, I love signing up for those things. So don't get me wrong, I'm all there with this self-care stuff. But then I took a step back and I'm wondering, what am I missing in my own traditions? Right? What am I missing from my mama and my tutu lady? Because they never know who Deepak Chopra was. And mindfulness was, they lived it. They didn't need somebody with an English accent talking slow to them for 5 minutes while I'm whatever, on an app. And so I've been pondering this, right? And probably the discussion, we got lots of, brilliant, I saw brilliant Wahine on the phone. I think, I saw Ka'ai on there, and Kahikili Nui might actually be on the phone as well too. And so trust me, I'm highly intimidated knowing that. But, so what was my mama's self-care, especially when she was so generous with her time and her ike? She didn't have the mindfulness apps, and she wasn't doing the meditation. She didn't do any of that, right? And I haven't fully unpacked this yet, right? So maybe it's a conversation that my Tita and I can have, us as a community can have. I know her sisters, and time with her sisters were likely part of her self-care. And the relationship she had in her community, whether it was Civic Club, whether it was through hula, definitely with her family, strengthening and finding those connections. I think that was part of her self-care. although she, because of her arthritis, didn't go in the ocean all the time or hike all the time, every moment she got to be outside, even if it was just in her little yard into her mid 80s, and feeding pigeons, which used to drive me bananas, right? It was nature. It wasn't the kind of nature that I get to work with at work that's in my background over here. It was the pigeons in our yard. But nature and Hawaii still was her self-care. Even if she was too unstable to walk down to the beach, she would look and she would smell and she would appreciate that, right? She would have aloha and mahalo for this place. And I think in that aloha and in that mahalo of giving to this place and giving to your ʻOhana, I wonder if that's what filled her up and gave her peace and gave her the strength to persist and to persevere, even though we watched her stretch, you know, to give. So that's something it's less of a very straightforward answer, but I think one of the important quality that we need right now might be to reflect on the way our kupuna, and especially our kupuna wahine, persisted through so much over generations, and what qualities are in there of that persistence and perseverance, and where did they find their self-care when they didn't have these fancy apps on their phone and they didn't have their doTERRA oils going off in their diffuser all day long while they're working. And I think it's in the relationships and the connections to this place and to their ʻOhana and their community. I could be wrong, as I think that's up for discussion.
No, I'd just like to take a minute or two to support Ulalia with that. You know, Ulalia and I are almost a generation apart. Yeah, I was 19 when she was born, so I had the distinct opportunity to live with my grandparents, and then have that time that I had with my mother before I moved to Maui. But I do believe also that they found what filled them early on. They found what was that thing that filled them. You know, my grandmother had 15 children, 13 lived to adulthood. And so her time was busy, but yet she played slacky. Slacky was her go-to place. She quilted. Quilting was her go-to place, and she loved the ocean. We would go down to what she called the sea beach, yeah, to go to the ocean. And I think, you know, our mother and her self-care was very much, as Ulalia said, was connected to the Hawaii that we live in. The pictures in our house with her during her younger years all had her outside, all had her on the beach, had her walking in a river, had her outside someplace. So I agree with Ulalia that the solace or the uplift, both things happening at the same time for our mother, and therefore I think translated to the two of us, was our Hawaii. And so for me, it still is. I too don't go to the beach as often as I used to, but it is there that I find solace every time. So yeah, it is our Hawaii that we have come to love with our whole being.
Mahalo, mahalo, Auntie and Ulalia, for just reminding us of the importance of this time and the people and the places. And it just sounds like, again, you are both shaped and reared in these values that now it's almost like you are prepared for this time. like you were ready for this time because of all that you have gained from your mama and from your ʻOhana. So mahalo for sharing that. It'll also remind us to now reflect tomorrow morning when we all wake up, instead of doing our meditative, apps, we're going to reflect on the question that Ulalia has posed to all of us. How do we take care of ourselves during this time? What does self-care look like? So mahalo. So I'm going to get it over to Jamie, and we're going to wrap things up.
Yes, self-care is so, so important. And this, I feel, I would consider this last hour is part of self-care for all of us, for myself included. And mahalo for planting and giving us, things to think about. I heard you guys both say that before. I'm thinking, and so now I'm thinking about those things when you say I am thinking. So we have about 5 more minutes or so, and there was a couple of questions that came through the chat, but I believe through this conversation, definitely answered. Just want to acknowledge all the people that have stayed on this last hour from different places across our Pai'aina, and we have someone from Australia. Auntie gives their aloha to you. Excuse me. So maybe, I don't know if you guys want to just take, 30 seconds if you want to, if there's one last thing that you wanted to share as we close up.
Go, sister.
Mahalo anui loa. Mahalo anui loa to Jamie and Judy for being fantabulous hostesses with the mostesses tonight. To Malia and the crew that's behind the scenes that makes it all sound good and on cue and all of that stuff. And to the ʻAha Wahine Kūhinapapa council hui group that is guiding and bringing these opportunities forward. Mahalo to the funders who have supported this and enabled this to happen and bring it forward. The thing I will leave, I think I'd leave us with is that that idea of the collective and finding that space and those people that want to work together interdependently on something that's bigger and better for us all, right? For all of Hawaii and all of us. The last little plug I'll put in, and was thinking about it as I was making like my little list of self-care stuff I try to do every day is, and maybe, a different Kanaka take on some of the stuff that we do so by ourselves in this contemporary self-care is, for me, the Kanai together time. And so each morning when I can get there, Kanai together, doing oli with a group of people, channeling positive energy for each other and for our community, really does fill me up. So there are these spaces out there for us. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui, Auntie Hōkū and Ulalia, for your time again. We so appreciate it. Thank you for helping us kick off this series. This was the best time ever. So I just want to share, going to the contest, the 3 winners are Maile Lu, Makanalani Gomes, and Leilani Di Mello. If you guys could email us at ahawahinekūhinapapa@gmail.com, then I can get your addresses and stuff and send off your seeds of change. Mahalo for participating. So in closing, just thank everybody again. We do want to acknowledge our funders, which is Hawaii's People's Fund, Papa Ololokahi, Kanai Okana, Hawaii Nui Akea, and OEVTV. And then up next on November 12, 2020, stay tuned for Na Wahine Kahau Naile. Lady Ipo, Kainani, Babu, her daughter, and Ha'ena will join us, and we'll hear some more mo'olelo and legacy making around Mele, all the way from Kauai and Hawaii Island. So mahalo, everyone. Have a good evening, rest of your night, and see you next time. Ahui ho.
Aloha hui ho.
Hui ho, aloha.